วัสดีค่ะ Thank you for being here together for the next session. So we have already finished the morning session of today's conference already. So now welcome back once again for the afternoon session. So now, how was your lunch? Good, right? Yeah, thank you. And welcome once again to Thailand, Land of Smile. And I hope you very enjoy and happy. For this session in the morning, we also have our speaker and of course many activity on the stage. So now, may I please invite our speaker and rapporteur on the stage, please. Please welcome.
So good afternoon, everyone. So I hope, just like what our MC said, that you had a wonderful lunch. So just energy check this afternoon. Can we look at our seatmates and flash them our big smiles, even with our masks on? Okay, so good afternoon once again. I am Emil Columna Cintillas from the Southeast Asian Ministers of Education Organization, or the CIMEO Secretariat, together with my colleagues later. And we will be recapping or providing the summary of our discussions this morning. So I will be providing the recap on breakout room number 1, where we focused on children and youth with disabilities and what are the key points and recommendations to ensure equitable education for for our learners, for children and youth with disabilities. Okay, so the session was moderated by Ms. Barca Henry, the Regional Manager of the Asia and Pacific, Leonard Cheshire. And then our speakers are Dr. Hanani Binti Harun Rasit, the Director of the CIMEO Regional Center for Special Educational Needs. We also have Ms. Prashanti Pradhan, co-founder and chairperson of FENSEM Parent Support Group Bhutan, and Ms. Geraltuya Barimid for the Ministry of Education and Science, Mongolia. So we have quite a variety of perspectives this morning in our session. We have a perspective on teacher training, on policy, and of course, parent perspective. So these are the recommendations from this session. I categorize them into 5 main points with specific recommendations from the participants as well as from our speakers. So the first one is access is key to education and well-being of children and youth with disabilities. So it's our vision that every school offers special educational and mainstream programs for children and youth with disabilities. It's also one of our recommendations that teaching and learning resources should be first available, accessible, and adaptable. And to ensure holistic development of our learners, there's also access to mental health services. At the same time, we also want to have access to early detention and intervention. We also want more teachers, assistant teachers, and support staff for children and youth with disabilities in our schools and our community learning centers. And we want training and capacity building, not just for teachers, but also for parents, ensuring that they have the knowledge and the skills to handle and to ensure that our children and youth with disabilities have access to education. And then finally, this is one very specific example from Mongolia, where there are home visitations to families of children and youth with disabilities, especially during the pandemic. Next one, we want to ensure that understanding context is crucial. So one of the things that was recommended earlier was the translation to and accessibility of different languages of resources and materials and resources for learners, teachers, and parents. This was evidenced by the Disability Inclusive Teaching and Emergencies Training shared by CIMEO SEN, where it was translated into 8 languages so that there's access across different countries. We also want to adapt materials based on the context of the country and the province or the community. And then finally, contextualizing learning deliveries based on the different contexts, whether it's gender, health situations, emergencies, and other disruptions. So we can find here that there's intersectionality across the sessions that we attended this morning. Introducing and accelerating innovations for disability-inclusive education, we want to maximize the available and emerging technologies, such as the assistive technologies, digital platforms, and Finally, one of the things that was also discussed this morning was funding. So a lot of discussions on financing also emerged this morning. So one is funding to address the digital divide, adapting to digitalization, especially post-pandemic. This one really underscored our theme this morning of working together towards equity. Engagement, collaborations, and partnerships are instrumental. So parental involvement is critical. So one of recommendations is the establishment of parent support groups. One of our speakers actually started the organization, the FENSIM, started as a support group in a coffee shop. And it evolved into an advocacy group, a training group with a lot of programs to support parents of learners with disabilities. We also want to strengthen parent-school partnerships. So from the support groups, we will now proceed to how we will now engage our schools on this so that they are reinforcing learning at home. We also want parents as trainers. So FENSIM shared earlier that there's peer counseling, sharing, and mentoring among parents. And we hope that in other countries as well, there are organizations such as this, such as FENSIM, who are have sharing sessions and counseling sessions within their peers or among parents as well. We also highlighted the importance of research towards evidence-based policy in program development with partnerships across countries. And we, of course, the age-old adage that we usually use in education, it takes a village to raise a child. So involvement of communities in addressing challenges in disability-inclusive education. And finally, it's not just specifics at the local level. We really want systems changes. We really want policy changes. So the final points are on advocacy, development, and implementation of policy and system changes. The first one is the development of inclusive social protection policies and strengthening implementation for those that have existing inclusive education policies. We also want to develop medium-term and long-term plans for inclusive education related to positive future planning. We really want to empower children, youth, parents, teachers, and communities to advocate for key changes in policies towards disability-inclusive education. But it's a two-way street. It's not just empowering them, but we also want our governments to listen to feedback from our learners, teachers, and parents so that we can continuously improve as well. And then finally, as mentioned, financing was discussed earlier, equity-based budgeting and improving education financing system. So thank you very much. That's for breakout room 1 this morning. So I'll now turn you over to Ms. Piapa.
Thank you, Emil. For my group, it's about let's start the PowerPoint. And for my group 2 is about the migration, language, and ethnicity, which the moderator. Sorry. Yeah. And the moderator of our group is Dr. Hun Jo Chong, Director of National Institute for Lifelong Education, Republic of Korea. And the speaker in our group, Mr. Francisco Carcano, Chief of Education, UNICEF Poland. And his topic is talking about the learning in time of crisis, that's focusing in the migration issues in Poland. And for the second speaker is Ms. Mariana Dimitriou, Chief of the Department of Education and Lifelong Learning, Municipality of the Hierarchy of Greeks. And the third speaker, Ms. Maria Mercedes Asadon, Associate Professor from the College of Education, University of the Philippines. And her presentation focused in the language and ethnicity, especially on the children and youth in ethno-linguistic minority groups. So that my recommendation just goes straight to the points that we gather from the participants and also from the speakers. And thank you very much for all the participants who joined in my group and for your contribution and reflections to the speakers and for the recommendation. So the first recommendation for migrants and refugee children, And we agree that the government should have the strong commitment and policy at national and local government level. And second, strong local partnership among the local government and civil society actors and NGOs. And third, governance structure at the city and national level. This is important, that how you can decide the delivery structure and the mechanism to the minority groups, especially to the parents and the children. And the fourth one is raising awareness campaign of the immigrant parents for the importance of language education and back to learning. And this is the very good example from the back to learning strategies from the presenters. And the fifth one is the establishment of the delivery mechanisms, such as like multiple support centers in the community level. So they suggest to have like nurseries and the parent support center center to the have many areas that have to be allocated for the parent support centers. And the next one is accessible content platform and flexible learning opportunities for migrants, especially like free mobile application. And the next issue is community engagement, including parents and volunteers. The next, language education and integrated support programs, such as like recreation programs with the social people and also extracurricular or sporting activities. And the last part is the lifelong learning program should be designed. For the next recommendation is focusing on the next slide, please. For the next recommendations, are focusing on the MTB and multilingual education and minorities group that presented by the professor from the College of Education of the Philippines. So the recommendation from our participants, including like national policy and performance management, that should be stated clearly in the education policy level. And second, parental involvement is also important, that we need to include other parents for the to train them, to give them awareness and also provide a support program to them. And they have to be involved in the learning process of the student, including the monitoring and also the support program to their students. The third point is like collaboration among all stakeholders in community. This is very important. Not just only like local government, school teachers, parents, community actors in the community should be involved in the learning and development process of the students. Integration MLE in performance evaluation and monitoring management. This is important, as I stated at the beginning. And the next part is capacity building program and the most important, incentive for the teachers. And next, alternative learning system and training for parents. And the last part, content development reflecting indigenous and cultural aspects. This part is very highlighted by our speaker. She talking about the storybooks that involve with the cultural expert to be part of the content development. And this is my presentation. Thank you very much.
Hello. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. So today I'll be sharing with you on a recommendation from the Urban Poor session. So our moderator for the session is Mr. Mirza Delmo from Child Poverty Technical Lead Save the Children. And our speakers are Dr. Lee An Vin, Director General, the Vietnam Institute of Educational Science. He has presented Equitable Education in Vietnam with a focus on the urban poor. Next, our presenter is Miss Rashida K. Chowdhury. So we are lucky to have her here because she's an activist with 30 years of experience in the field itself. And she's Executive Director or CEO Campaign for Popular Education or CAMP. She presented Together Towards Equity at Ground Level Realities. Next, our presenter is Mr. Italo Dutra. And we are also lucky to have him here, apart with jet-lagged, all the way from Brazil. So we should thank him for being here, able to be here today. And he has enthusiastically, without showing his, tiredness, shared about his Brazil education system and his efforts on reaching out the disadvantaged children and shared some of the foundational learning focus in the Brazil. Thank you, everyone, those who have presented today. Now let me share with you the recommendation that we have harvested from our discussion. So I have categorized it into 3 sections. The first one, we are going to look into the proper planning and appropriate strategies, mostly on the government. I'm mostly focusing on the governance side. So the first one is the promoting active involvement of all levels, that will be top to down, of stakeholders, particularly government and non-government education providers and decision makers for ensuring access, equity, and equality in education. Next, we are looking forward to have a stronger partnership with private sector and local communities to provide multimodal access to quality and equitable education. For example, like providing internet access and giving away mobile devices, and also providing parallel program for the students. Next, we are also looking into that providing consultation with different education institutions, could be either local or public, to discuss the ways to provide access to education for the unreached. Here, the unreached, we are referring to the urban poor. Now, we are also looking into the possibility in mobilizing and incentivizing high-performing teachers to teach in urban poor school settings, where we can see experience exchange can be seen through this mobilization. Next, we also have recommended from the session itself monitoring at all levels. So the first one, we are recommending monitoring the students' access to education at all levels. So with this, we do need involvement from the community and other sector, so that they can provide educate data for the government, especially in the policy making. Next is gathering evidence from the field on the access of education, for example, school dropouts, learning losses, students' achievements. Next, we are also looking into assessing teachers' competency and readiness in addressing student needs and welfare. Are the teacher ready or not during this pandemic time? And also addressing lots of challenges during these pandemic times. And next, we need to be transparent. We are also recommending the transparent use of existing resources. And also, we also recommending scientific data collection on school violence and linguistic minorities. Last but not least, we also propose financing for education. The first one will be prioritizing the budget for education, especially by looking from the governmental side. And then second, providing few financing options for students, such as scholarships and other education incentives or assistance. And then next, provide finance for skill-based training that could increase the students' employability and livelihood. And lastly is providing incentives and tax justice for sector that involved in financing education. That's all from our session. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for all participants. And it's like a very wonderful summary for everyone here.